Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, since I have been for this bill for the past 2 years, and since my hometown is Memphis, and since it's been mentioned about 50 to 100 times already, I wanted to give a defense of why I am for this bill, especially because for the past 48 hours at home, we've become under a lot of attack on this bill. I don't agree with a lot of the numbers that have been put out. I moved to Memphis in 1966. This summer I've been there 50 years. I would have seen the ebb and the flow of a lot of things in Memphis. Let me give you a couple of figures. In 1980, the population of Memphis was 646,000. 1990, it was 619,000. In 2000, it was 690,000. And today, it's right around 653,000. So in the last 35 years, we have had basically zero population growth, all the while annexing 100,000 people. So really, we've lost 100,000 people. So we have more issues than just annexation, de-annexation. In the 1980s, there was a wonderful community. My parents almost bought a house in there. The property values in Cordova, Countrywood, the property values, when you want to talk about property values, they are down in half of what they used to be. And so the reason, and I want to tell my people back home, the reason I am for this bill, Memphis is one of the greatest cities in this state and this nation. I've lived there for 50 years. And you know, I will fight every day for Memphis. I do on education reform and everything else. And Memphis has got a lot of good things going. We got a great mayor, Mayor Jim Strickland. I have been his biggest supporter, and I will continue to be, and I will work to help him. But we got bigger issues when over 35 years you lose 100,000 people in your community. So this is not so much about annexation, de-annexation. This is about a systemic problem that we've got to keep people moving back into Memphis. And that's what a lot of this is about. So I have been supportive of this for 2 years. I've had a lot of calls in the last 3 days saying, please don't support it. I've been committed. I cannot back up now. So I support this bill, and that's the reason why. Thank you.
Representative Carter.
If I could explain the bill, let's go through this. It's a short bill, but it has some meaningful portions, and I would like to explain it. And in that way, we will be able to address some of the issues that was raised. And I must say that I do appreciate that I wasn't accused of having big ears or small hands during the discussion. The first section of this bill deals with roads and the de-annexation of roads. Let me explain. Are you aware that the current law in Tennessee provides that a city may de-annex its roads within its municipality? Are you aware that they may do that without acknowledgement or consent of the county? Are you aware that they simply pass an ordinance and that road is de-annexed and returned back to the maintenance of the county? Are you aware that they are under no obligation to notify the county they have done so? In Hamilton County, one such situation occurred when a lawsuit was filed over an accident that occurred with the disrepair of a road, and the county had no idea that it had been responsible for that road for more than 5 years. To add to that, are you aware that the gas tax and other state maintenance fees that go for the maintenance of that road stayed with that city while the liability and the maintenance went to the county? This bill provides, in fairness to the cities, if they have done that in the past, it gives them 6 months to notify the Commissioner of Insurance that they have, since May 1st, 1998, de-annexed roads without giving notice. We give them an additional 6 months to decide whether to take that road back or not so that the city will not be harmed. If that city decides not to take that road back, then they must notify the county mayor. The county mayor notifies the Commissioner of Finance and Administration, and the Commissioner of Finance and Administration moves those maintenance fees, which have been wrongfully, in my opinion, paid to the cities, over to the county. The money for maintenance follows the duty to maintain. That's the first section of this bill. I want to skip to the third section of the bill briefly. I call it non-contiguous annexation. To my knowledge, there's only 2 cities in the state that oppose the first portion. Only 2 cities. The third portion of this bill is called non-contiguous annexation. We're honored today to have mayors and members of the TML here among us and with us. Find one that's opposed to this. They've even run a backup bill in case this doesn't work. Now let me explain non-contiguous annexation. When we passed the annexation bill, we elevated consent coming into the city as the number one tried and true method, and we gave it all priorities. I had forgot something that I had learned many years ago. In my county, Hamilton County, and I've since learned throughout the state, many roads that were taken over by the counties back up through the 40s, 50s, 60s, and early 70s, they were not condemned and taken in fee simple. They were simply easements granted. So when we very confidently 2 years ago said, if you want to be in the city, you can move in the city. The city can merely reach out and annex you by consent. What I failed to recall is many of those deeds called to the center line of the road that effectively stopped the city. One person down the road could stop the will of all. That is not good for the cities. That's not even fair. So this bill includes non-contiguous annexation by the cities. What are the requirements to exercise non-contiguous annexation? The person who wants to be taken into the city must consent and request they go in the city. His or her property must be within the urban growth boundary of the city, and the city must accept. That's it. It applies to residential, commercial, and industrial properties. I don't think you'll find any of our friends from the Tennessee Municipal League or the cities here tonight that aren't wholeheartedly in favor of this bill, especially since they are running a bill to do exactly the same thing in case this bill had not succeeded. I want to talk now about the most contested portion of the bill, which I call deannexation. Deannexation is the power that every city currently exists. Are you aware of that? Every city can de-annex tonight. Are you aware of that? All I'm doing is saying the citizens for a limited period of time have the same right. What do you mean limited period of time? This portion of the bill is sunsetted July 1st, 2019. Are you listening? In addition to that time restraint, those parties moving a referendum to vote on de-annexation only have one opportunity. Should this bill pass and be signed by the governor, if you can get all of this done, because there's a 75-day requirement, if you could get all that done by November the 16th, you could have your referendum then. Let's assume it fails. If it fails, there can be no other referendum in 2018. This is one chance and one only. A friend of mine who is a mayor called me, and he's a very wise man, and I respect his opinion dramatically. And he said to me, Mike, don't extend this out, close this wound, and let me go on. He is the very reason we moved back from 7 years to 3 years. I appreciate his input. Something else I want to make sure that you understand is cities have the power to annex by ordinance without the consent of the people. I can tell you all the horror stories you want to listen to and that we have time to for these de-annexations. The law already provides what debt service must be taken with the departing citizens. If the cities drafted these provisions, why would they now argue against them? We have heard several complaints about the 10% required to create a referendum. Where does that come from? Are you aware that 10% of the registered voters of any city in this state can move to abolish that city? If 10% is sufficient to abolish a city, why would 10% not be sufficient to determine whether there will be a question about de-annexation?